Welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
If you are tuning in right now, you are probably the kind of person who isn't satisfied with surface-level explanations of, well, anything, really.
Right. You want to know how the machine actually works.
Exactly. And I don't mean your toaster, and I don't mean your car. I mean reality itself. The engine under the hood of your own life.
And today we are looking at a manual that claims to explain exactly that.
But it's not a physics textbook.
No. At least not one you would find in any university on this planet.
Definitely not. So today we're doing something a little different. Usually we're tearing apart business journals or tech papers, but tonight we're setting the vibe a little differently.
Completely different atmosphere.
Yeah. I want you to imagine it's late. Maybe you're on a long drive with just the headlights on the highway and miles of darkness on either side.
Or maybe you're just sitting in a quiet room with a single lamp on, watching the shadows in the corner.
We are going for that late night radio feel.
Which is entirely appropriate because the source material we are covering today was dictated late at night.
Right.
It deals with the things that happen when the rest of the world is asleep. It deals with the twilight zones of the human mind.
It really does.
Yeah.
But before we get totally lost in the dark here, we
Yeah.
do have a mandatory disclaimer to get out of the way.
All right.
We have to declare that this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We aren't telling you to go out and try this stuff.
We are just analyzing the text.
Exactly. So what is the text? We are looking at a document that claims to be a technical manual for escaping the physical body.
Literally escaping it.
Yeah, we are talking about astral projection or out-of-body experiences or whatever label you want to slap on it.
But this isn't some fluffy new age guide about floating on a cloud of intent or visualizing rainbows until you float away.
No, that is what caught my attention immediately. This text treats the human soul like an engine. It talks about chemistry and electromagnetism and dietary inputs. Mechanics. It's weirdly practical. It feels less like a spell book and way more like a car repair manual.
It really is rigorous. And before we get into the how-tos, and we will definitely get to the specific instructions, including a very strange grocery list, we need to be clear about exactly what we are reading.
Lay it on us.
This is a deep dive into session 274 of the early sessions book 6 of the Seth material.
Recorded on July 20, 1966.
Yes. And it is explicitly credited to the Seth material and the publisher New Awareness Network.
Right.
And we really have to encourage you to study the Seth material books directly. If you want the raw data, you need to visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com for the early sessions.
We are just two guides walking you through one tiny slice of a massive library today.
A very deep library.
But I have to admit, after reading this session, I was checking the compass on my phone and looking at my grocery list very differently.
You were checking the asparagus situation.
I was absolutely checking the asparagus situation.
Well,
But we will get to the vegetables later. Let's start with the source itself. For the listener who has no idea who or what Seth is, could you give us the 30-second elevator pitch? Because this can sound pretty out there if you were coming in cold.
Okay, the short version is that in the 1960s, a writer named Jane Roberts began entering a trance state.
A deep trance.
Right. And while in this state, a personality calling itself Seth would speak through her. Her husband, Robert Butts, would sit there and write down everything Seth said in shorthand.
And this went on for decades.
Decades, yes. And regardless of what you believe, whether you think it's a spirit or a subconscious hack or just incredibly elaborate creative fiction, the material itself is incredibly dense.
It's internally consistent. It doesn't read like ramblings at all.
Exactly. It reads like a doctoral thesis on the nature of reality. And session 274 is highly unique. It's one of those nights where Seth wasn't interested in abstract philosophy.
He was interested in mechanics.
He wanted to explain the physics of the soul.
So let's set the scene for that night. July 20, 1966. Elmira, New York.
It is a Wednesday night, and it is extremely hot.
The notes specifically mention this. It's the middle of summer, and they have no air conditioning. The windows are wide open to try and catch a breeze.
Rob notes that they had actually removed the rug from the floor for the summer. So it's just bare floorboards in the room.
And that detail really matters because of the sound.
Right. Because when Jane goes into a trance, her voice changes. Usually it's a bit different. But on this specific night, something else happened.
Something that honestly gave me chills just reading the transcript.
Rob describes it as booming. He says her voice dropped into this deep, resonant register that started echoing off the bare walls.
Wow.
It was loud enough to drown out the traffic noise coming in from the street outside.
That is such a chilling image. You are sitting there in the sticky heat, just scribbling notes, and suddenly your wife's voice drops an octave and starts lecturing you on electromagnetic fields with this booming authority.
And Jane later said she felt wrapped in a cocoon. She was totally dissociated. Usually she's sort of semi-present, watching from the sidelines of her own mind.
But this time
she was gone. She said she was within the voice.
it creates this intense, almost gothic atmosphere. But then right in the middle of this spooky description, I love the contradiction that Rod captures in the notes.
Oh, the smoking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though she's channeling this booming, disembodied intellect, the physical body is still just Jane.
Right. She's sipping wine and chain-smoking cigarettes the whole time.
It's such a grounding detail. It's like, here are the secrets of the cosmos, but first let me ash this cigarette. It's hilarious in a way.
It reminds you that this is a collaboration. It's a biological organism, Jane, interfacing with a non-physical consciousness.
Yeah.
And that interface is actually the first thing Seth wants to talk about.
Yes. Before he gets to the out-of-body part, he has to explain what it means to be in the body. And this is where he drops a bomb that I think a lot of people might find pretty uncomfortable.
You mean his definition of the ego?
Yeah. We tend to think of our ego, ourself, the me behind the eyes as the pilot. We think it's the permanent thing, the soul. We think I am this personality. But Seth says, not exactly.
No, he's very specific here. He calls the ego a physical byproduct.
A byproduct? That sounds so disposable, like exhaust fumes.
Listen to this quote from the session. Seth says the ego is largely dependent upon the physical mechanisms that compose the corporal image.
The corporal image meaning the body.
Yes. And he goes on to say it is formed by chemical and electromagnetic connections.
Okay, let's pause there and really unpack that, because that sounds almost like materialist science. He is saying my personality is just a chemical reaction, like the fizz in a soda.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
But he is making a vital distinction between the ego and the whole self.
Break that down for me, because if my ego is just chemicals, then what am I?
Imagine your computer. You have the operating system like Windows or Mac OS. That interface is designed specifically to make the hardware work. It translates keystrokes into data.
Okay.
If you smash the computer, the OS is gone. It can't exist without the silicon.
I follow that.
Seth is saying your ego is the operating system. It is chemically glued to your brain. It is designed to focus on physical reality. It's a survival mechanism. It's the interface that lets you navigate traffic and pay taxes and talk to your boss.
So the ego is just the interface. It's the user experience.
Exactly. But the user, the whole self or the soul, exists independently. The problem is we confuse the user with the interface. We think we are Windows.
That is a terrifying thought, but also kind of liberating. It means the me that gets anxious or angry is just code.
It explains why astral projection is so hard. And this is Seth's main point in this section. We aren't just scared to leave our body psychologically. We are chemically bound to them.
So it's not a psychological block, it's a chemical bond.
Precisely. Seth says without these chemical and electromagnetic connections, the ego as such would not exist. So when you try to have an out-of-body experience, your ego freaks out. Not because it's scared of ghosts, but because it senses its own dissolution.
It thinks it's dying.
Right. Because the ego is the body's chemistry. If you leave the body, the ego stays behind, or it has to fundamentally change.
So to get out, we have to override the system. We have to essentially hack the operating system to let the user log out.
We have to generate enough energy to break the chemical seal.
And this brings us to the rocket fuel. This is the part of the deep dive that really blew my mind, because Seth starts talking about consciousness like it's a combustion engine.
The concept of chemical excess. This is the absolute key to the whole manual.
Explain this. What is chemical excess?
Seth explains that the act of being conscious, thinking, feeling, perceiving burns energy. It burns chemicals in the body. He has this great line where he says, the more intense the individual, the hotter the fire.
The hotter the fire. I like that. It implies that intensity isn't just an emotion. It's a physics equation.
Exactly. Now, normally throughout the day, we build up this chemical energy. It's like a byproduct of being alive. And usually we have a release valve. Yes. Seth says that normal dreaming is essentially a waste disposal system. We use that built-up excess fuel to create dream images. We burn it off so we can wake up fresh.
It's like venting the steam from a boiler so the pipes don't burst.
But, and here's the big aha moment for the aspiring astral traveler, if you want to project, you cannot waste that fuel on normal dreams.
You have to hoard it.
You need a superabundance of this chemical energy. because projecting consciousness out of the physical dimension requires a massive amount of thrust.
It's the difference between driving your car to the grocery store, which is a dream, and launching a rocket to the moon.
Right. You need high-octane fuel, and you need a completely full tank. Seth warns that usually and without training, the chemical excess is used in the dreaming process.
So if I am hearing this right, the reason most of us don't have out-of-body experiences isn't because we aren't spiritual enough. It's because we are inefficient. We are leaking fuel every single night.
We are squandering our propellant on random dream hallucinations.
So the trick is to plug the leak, to save the gas.
The trick is to generate so much excess energy that a normal dream simply cannot burn it all off. You need to overfill the tank until it explodes you out of your body.
That is violent and exciting.
It's pure mechanics. And this is where the manual gets really weird, because Seth gives us a list of ways to generate this chemical excess. And it involves everything from what you eat to how you sleep.
Which brings us back to the asparagus. I've been dying to get to this all day.
The dietary adjustments.
Okay, lay it on me. If I want to leave my body and travel the astral planes, apparently I need to go to the grocery store. What is on the list?
Eggs.
Yeah.
Asparagus.
And fish oils.
Eggs and asparagus. I honestly laughed out loud when I read this. It feels so random. The secrets of the universe are yours, but first, eat your vegetables.
Seth is very clear, though, to temper expectations. He says, eggs and asparagus are helpful. I am obviously not suggesting a whole diet composed of eggs and asparagus.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine the smell.
But he mentions them specifically, and he also warns against acid foods. So what's the logic there? Why asparagus? Is Seth just a fan of smelly urine?
He doesn't give a breakdown of the molecular compounds in this specific session, but if we look at it through his chemical excess theory, we can speculate a bit. Eggs are high in sulfur and protein. Asparagus is also high in sulfur and amino acids like asparagine.
Sulfur? Isn't that associated with energy?
It is. It's crucial for cell function. And fish oils like omega-3s are essential for brain connectivity and the entire nervous system. If the ego is electromagnetic, maybe these foods improve the overall conductivity of the body.
It's like tuning the engine. You put in the right additives.
Exactly. He views diet not as health in the way a modern doctor does, but as fuel composition. If you eat highly acidic foods, Seth suggests it might neutralize the electrical energy you were trying to build up.
So step 1 is omelets with asparagus and hold the orange juice. Got it. Now step 2 is where it gets a little spicy. The sex factor.
This is where people usually get confused because the advice seems super contradictory at first glance.
Yeah. Reading the transcript, Seth says periods of heightened sexual activity can help. But then, almost in the same breath, he says periods of no sexual activity can also help. Which is it? Do we or don't we?
It's not about the act itself. It's about the energy intensity.
Explain that, because it sounds like he is just saying do whatever you want.
No, he is saying do whatever creates the most pressure. Remember, the goal is chemical excess. You want to build up a massive charge of energy. Seth says intense sexual activity builds up intensity. It revs the engine. It creates that hotter fire of consciousness we talked about earlier.
Okay, so that generates the fuel. High revs and high heat.
Right. But if you have no sexual activity, you are denying the release of that physical energy. So the pressure builds up inside the system.
I see. It's a pressure cooker method.
Exactly. Seth says in the latter case of no activity, the excess is built up because psychic and sexual release has not been granted.
So both methods result in a surplus of energy, one by generating a ton of it through activity, and the other by conserving it by essentially blocking the exit.
Yes. The common denominator is that you end up with a tank full of volatile fuel ready to be used for projection.
It really is all about mechanics. It removes the morality from it completely.
It does. It's not about chastity being spiritual. It's about chastity creating a pressure buildup. It's purely functional.
I love that. It takes the guilt out of it and replaces it with physics. Okay, so we have eaten our asparagus and we have managed our energy budget. Now we have to look at the setup, the environment. Seth has some very strict rules about where and how you sleep.
The north-south position. This is marked in the notes as extremely important.
The rule is you must sleep with your head to the north, or at least aligned north-south.
And this isn't feng shui. Well, it might be related to the roots of feng shui, but Seth explains it entirely in terms of electromagnetism.
He says it aligns with the Earth's electromagnetic fields.
Right. He says the reasoning parts of the brain can work most efficiently, along with the intuitive portions of the self, when the physical organism is in that position.
So if I sleep east-west, what happens?
According to Seth, the energy is cut. The intellectual processes are diminished. The whole self doesn't operate as a single unified unit.
I am imagining it like swimming against the current. If you align with the river or the Earth's magnetic field, you flow. If you go sideways, east-west, you are fighting the chop.
That is a great visual. And he says this alignment is absolutely necessary for efficient dream records. So if you are trying to remember your dreams or project, being cross-current is going to scatter your signal.
I actually checked my compass app right before we started recording. My bed is facing west. This explains so much about my mornings.
It might explain why you feel groggy or why your dreams are fragmented. Seth is adamant that the north-south alignment allows the reasoning brain to communicate with the intuitive self.
And for projection, you need both.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
You need the intuition to leave the body to float out, but you need the reason, the intellect to remember that you did it. Otherwise, you just float around in a daze and wake up thinking you had a weird dream.
That is the kicker. He says we project all the time, we just don't remember it.
We will get to that. But first, let's finish setting the stage checklist. Because timing is everything.
The golden hours. Seth gives us a very specific schedule.
Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m.
The classic witching hour. Why is it always 3 a.m.? Every horror movie, every ghost story.
But again, Seth gives a biological reason for this. It's not because ghosts are spooky then. It's because body temperature drops.
He says the body temperature drops, creating a physical lull.
Right. When the body cools down, the hold of the physical ego loosens. The chemical glue we talked about earlier, that bond between the operating system and the hardware, is a little less sticky when the hardware is cool.
He also mentions 5 p.m. is a good time, which is basically happy hour. So 3 a.m. or happy hour, good to know.
It creates a secondary window. But the temperature of the room matters too. He gets incredibly precise here. He suggests the room temperature between 73.8 and 75.9 degrees Fahrenheit.
That is suspiciously specific. 73.8, not just 74.
It points to the idea that there is an optimal biological window for this. If it's too cold, the body fights to stay warm, which engages the ego. If it's too hot, well, that brings us to the science of sweat.
Seth hates sweat.
He really does. He warns that August is the absolute worst month to try this because it's just too hot.
He says high humidity and sweat disrupt the electrical current around the skin.
This is fascinating. He is implying that the human body generates an electrical field, an aura, if you will, and that field is necessary for projection. Sweat is conductive, but moisture on the skin apparently scatters or grounds that charge.
So if you're sweaty, you're grounded. You're basically short-circuiting your own launch pad.
Basically. The electrical fields that are necessary for the projection get short-circuited by the moisture. You need to be cool and dry.
This matches the cool colors advice, too. He says use cool colors in the bedroom because warm colors are too earthly.
Warm colors ground you. They keep you attached to the physical senses. Cool colors like blues and greens are more conducive to the mental state needed to detach. And he mentions one more tool, a mirror.
Yes, a mirror in the bedroom is an excellent aid. He doesn't fully explain why in this specific session, but in other esoteric traditions, mirrors are often seen as portals.
Or perhaps it helps in the visualization process.
Yeah.
Seeing your physical form helps you differentiate the you that is looking from the you that is in the glass. It reinforces the idea of duality, that there is a watcher separate from the body.
Okay, so let's recap the checklist so far because it is extensive. Number 1 is diet. Eat asparagus and fish oils. Number 2, sleep with your head north. Number 3, keep the room at exactly 74 degrees. Number 4, wake up at 3 a.m. Number 5, make sure you aren't sweaty. And number 6, have a mirror.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
But Seth says these projections take a strong propelling force. You are traveling from one dimension to another. It takes considerable psychic energy. You can't just stumble into it.
But there is one more component, and this might be the most important one of all. It's the mindset. Because you can do all the mechanics right, but if your head isn't in the game, the engine won't start.
The psychology of the escape.
Seth pivots from the chemistry to the philosophy. He starts talking about what we would normally call the law of attraction, but in true Seth style, it is much deeper.
He says your attitudes toward what is possible determines what is possible for you.
And he gives that great example where he says your attitude toward money creates your bank account.
He is trying to teach them practicality. To Seth, being practical means understanding mental laws. He says if you don't believe you can project that thing, you physically won't be able to generate the chemistry to do it.
This is where the science and the magic merge. He is saying that your belief system actually alters your body chemistry.
Exactly. If you believe projection is impossible, your brain will not produce the chemical propellant needed to launch. You are sabotaging the fuel supply with your own doubt.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to believe in the ghost to become the ghost.
You have to know it's possible. Seth says you create your reality and no one else can create it for you. It's the ultimate responsibility.
So why do we do this? Why go through all the trouble of eating asparagus and waking up at 3 a.m.? What is the actual goal here? Is it just to fly around and spy on your neighbors?
It's not just tourism, although Seth implies that can be fun.
I mean, if I could walk through walls, I would definitely be checking what is in my neighbor's fridge.
A perk, sure.
Yeah.
But Seth says the real goal is to prove to the self that it can exist without the body.
Proof of survival.
Yes. He says a self that is conceived of as a physical composition only would never be able to project nor survive physical death.
That is a heavy statement.
It implies that practicing projection is essentially practicing for death. It's training wheels for the afterlife.
That puts a totally different spin on it.
If you can learn to function consciously outside your body now, then when the body eventually fails, you won't be lost. You will know the terrain. You will know that you are not the body.
You will have experiential proof. Not faith, not religion. Actual proof. You will have been out, and you will have come back.
And Seth drops a little tease here, too. He suggests that the hosts, and by extension maybe us listeners, might meet him in a projection one day.
He smiles when he says it, too. The notes say his eyes open wide and he smiles. He says, you may even meet me in some future projection.
I got chills reading that. The idea that this personality from 1966 is hanging out in the astral plane waiting for us to figure out the asparagus ratio so we can come say hi.
And he adds a twist. He says, we actually project all the time. He tells Rob, you often project when you're painting and you do not know it.
Unconscious projections. Seth claims that when we are deeply absorbed in creative work, or even just sleeping parts of our consciousness detach and travel, we just don't have the bridge to bring those memories back to the waking ego.
So the lights are on, but nobody is home.
Or rather, the homeowner is in the backyard, but the security cameras inside the house aren't recording.
That is a wild thought. It makes you wonder where you go when you zone out.
It forces you to question the continuity of your own existence. Are you really here right now? Or is just a part of you here listening to this deep dive while the rest of you is off exploring some other dimension?
Okay, let's let this sink in for a second. That is a lot to process.
It really is. It redefines what it means to be a person. We aren't solid objects. We are these fluctuating fields of energy constantly moving in and out of physical focus.
So what does this all mean for the listener? What do we do with this info?
Well, if you are brave, you try the checklist. But you have to be serious about it. You can't just dabble.
Let's recap the astral travel checklist one last time for the brave souls out there.
Number 1 is diet. Boost the eggs, asparagus, and fish oils. Cut the acid. You need that sulfur.
Number 2 is north-south alignment. Get a compass. Point your head north to align with the magnetic field.
Number 3 is temperature control. Keep the room cool. 73 to 75 degrees. Don't sweat. You need to be dry for the electrical current.
Number 4 is timing. 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is your launch window.
And number 5 is attitude. You have to believe it is possible. You have to know that you are more than just your body.
And remember, Seth says this is practical stuff. It's not magic. It's just physics we don't understand yet.
It's the physics of the soul.
I love that. The physics of the soul. You know, reading this session, even with the spooky voice and the weird diet tips, it feels surprisingly hopeful.
It is hopeful. It takes the fear out of the unknown. If the soul is just energy, and energy can be managed and directed, then we aren't helpless. We are pilots learning to fly a very complex machine.
And sometimes that machine needs asparagus.
Apparently so.
If you want to dive deeper into this, and trust me, we barely scratched the surface of what Seth talks about, you need to check out the books.
Seriously. Go to sethcenter.com/early sessions. Get the books. Read the raw material. There is a depth to Seth's voice that you have to experience for yourself. We are just giving you the Cliff Notes today.
And remember, this deep dive is just a guide. The real work happens in your own bedroom at 3 a.m. when the world is quiet and the temperature is just right.
Just don't forget the mirror.
Right. And maybe leave a light on, just in case.
A cool colored light, though.
Touché. The blue light.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one provocative thought. Something to mull over tonight while you're trying to align your bed to the north.
Hit us with it.
Seth says we project unconsciously all the time, that a part of us is constantly leaving and returning. So if that is true, where are you right now? Are you the one listening to this voice, or are you the one watching yourself listen?
And on that note, sleep tight.
And keep your head to the north.
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.